There's a cabin in a valley my grandpa built on your land. Your mountains are a canvas for the maker's hand. Tonight I'm fishing Elk River, if only in my mind. No, I haven't seen her banks in such a long, long time. I carry you in my heart. Your memory comes over me like the dark, and like a phone call from my baby saying, honey, I miss you like crazy. Like a sound of a siren song. Oh, Caroline, you keep calling me home, calling me home.
Bust my line, a couple beautiful girls tell me goodbye. Trucks break down, dogs run off, politicians lie, been fired by the boss. It takes one hand to count the things I can count on. No, there ain't much man that ain't ever let me down. Long neck, ice cold beer never broke my heart. Like diamond rings and football teams have torn this boy apart. Like a neon dream, it just don't know me. The bars in this guitar and long neck, ice cold beer never broke my heart. She was a Carolina blue jean baby, fire in her eyes that drove me crazy. It was red tail lights when she left town. If I didn't know then, I sure know now. But long neck, ice cold beer never broke my heart. Like diamond rings and football teams have torn this boy apart. Like a neon dream, it just don't know me. The bars in this guitar and long neck, ice cold beer never broke my heart. It takes one hand to count the things I can count on, but I got one hand that's gripping down on a cold one. 'Cause long neck, ice cold beer never broke my heart. Like diamond rings and football teams have torn this boy apart. Like a neon dream, it just don't know me. The bars in this guitar and long neck, ice cold beer never broke my heart.
What's going on, Tar Pit crew? Welcome back to another episode of the Tar Pit Podcast, your go-to spot for all things Carolina football. Hey, appreciate you guys tuning in at lunchtime. This is our first, I guess you would say, episode of this new series that we're dropping before every game that the Tar Heels will take on an opponent. Playbook from the Tar Pit. Our goal is to give you just our insights, our thoughts on what we feel like UNC needs to do. For example, against this weekend against UCF, to come away with a dub, to come back to Chapel Hill with a win. I know I'm excited about this game. Honestly speaking, I am nervous about it. You know, UCF, they've had, dominant performance in their last game against A&T, an FCS school, like we did against Richmond. But they didn't fare so well against Jacksonville, even though they came away with a dub. But look, we're going to jump into it quickly. Trevor, Troy, lunchtime. Man, you know what would be really good right now? A J. Mike's number 9 with extra vinegar, jalapenos, mayonnaise, mustard, and a side of salt and vinegar chips from Miss Vicky's and a lemonade.
You got to get that 2-6, bro. That Mike's chicken Philly, or the either that or the chicken bacon ranch.
And that's what I get, Troy. I was gonna say a Red Bull would be good right now, Chris. That's what I was gonna say.
Man, I picked up a Celsius this morning. They're like taking over like the whole case at the store I was at, and then I picked up one of those primes for this afternoon. I'm gonna try to stay away from it, but I don't know. It's already calling my name. So
hey, we got a Duke fan tuned in. Woody, appreciate you tuning in, brother. Appreciate the support.
Is that one of your boys?
Yeah, it's one of my boys. He's played high school football with Chris, and that's his government name. And played high school football with him. He's actually in my fantasy league trying to knock me off from my 4-peat. So we'll see if them boys over there can get the job done this season.
Hey, Woody Perry, I see him over here. Not even a UNC fan. We'll throw him up on the screen. Hey, look at that. I like that photo there. That's pretty cool. But appreciate you tuning in, Woody. Big game for you guys down in I think Durham, taking on State.
That was Woody in his Hyundai in his picture. That was Woody in his Hyundai with his 12 Memphis sub in the back with the back glass rattling in high school, sneaking me out as a freshman to go get lunch.
I know we said we were going to jump in this rather quickly because it's lunchtime, and I promised you guys that this would be a 30-minute episode, but you know how we guys are. But quick, funny little story was in high school, I was kind of like one of those goody tissue kids. You know, I didn't drink till I was like 21. I'm not going to go into all that, but I was about to talk about some other stuff I tried later in life when I moved to Colorado, but we'll stay away from that. I'm back in Chapel Hill now, but I think you guys know where I was about to go with that, but we'll stay away with that in case some friendly kiddos are listening to the Tar Pit podcast, getting you ready for UCF. But we had like a senior day, like at the beginning of the year, just like celebration that it was our senior year, and we had a raffle, and the local like stereo shop had given a gift card of like $300 or something like that, and I won it, and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this. And my friend was like, bro, you should just go get a sub, like a big sub. And so I went and got like 2 12s and like I had my big, like, I don't know if you know Skillet, but a big time Christian band back in the day, and I just like blaring them like all in Lecrae, like, which is a Christian rapper, like pulling into the parking lot, and everybody was like, what is Chris Smith doing? It's like, bro, I'm here, I've arrived finally. But anyway,
I'm here. Church can start now.
Yeah.
I used to pull up to high school in my 95 Honda Civic EX with a Pioneer in the back bumping NWA.
There you go. You go. Woody already talking some trash for the Duke versus State game. I like this comment right here. Look, wherever you're listening today, do us a favor. Retweet this stream out lunchtime. It's our first one at lunchtime, so we didn't know how many people we have. We usually have anywhere from 250 to 400. You just never know. So appreciate you, all you guys and gals, I guess you could say as well, tapping into the Tar Pit podcast during lunchtime. Open up that lunch pail, I guess you could say, and grab some lunch food and whatever your drink of choice is. It's Friday, so it's 5 o'clock somewhere, I guess someone would say, and listen to the Tar Pit podcast. Well, let's go ahead and dive into it. Playbook from the Tar Pit podcast as UNC takes on UCF down in Orlando at the Bounce House. We just recently had an episode with Adam Eaton of Sons of UCF. Great outlet down there. They cover all of UC athletics, and it was a great episode. That's now being streamed on YouTube and also Spotify in the audio and video version as well on Spotify. So be sure to check that out. We've dropped a couple of reels and a lot of similarities in this program. Chapel Hill, new coaches, tons of new players. They have 63 new players, I believe it is, to our 70 new players. Some people might question me on that about 63, but you can go on the UCF official website, and that's what they had listed. So that's what I'm going to go with. And I believe 36 of them are D1 transfers. So, Carolina comes into this game and against UCF in the bounce house at 3:30 on Fox. I'm looking forward to it. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make this one. I tried to convince the kid to go to Orlando. She's 8 years old. It's her birthday today. So shout out to Asha. Happy birthday to Asha. And she said, no, I want to have my party. So boys, let's jump in here. Any other what we call like joshing up talk before we jump into what we believe the Tar Pit podcast thinks North Carolina needs to do on the offensive, defensive side of the ball. I mean, also special teams, right? To come away with a win on the way back to Chapel Hill.
Yeah, hey, happy birthday to your little girl, man. I know I texted
Yeah.
you earlier, but I gotta say it on air too. She's you got
You
a good
texted me
one.
today?
All right, comment on your Facebook. Sorry. Facebook.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, happy birthday to Asha. I guess that would be the last part of my Joshua would be happy birthday to Asha. And she's mean on the tables is what Chris tells me.
Tables.
So,
What kind of
yeah.
tables?
Like the tables, whatever she does with the horses. I just call it tables.
Horses. Yeah. Man,
Is that what you call it? Stables or tables?
Stables, I think.
I don't know. I'm still getting used to all the horse talk.
Well, either way, she's mean on a show horse. That's all I gotta say.
I'm getting a little nervous because I ain't got this kind of money, but I was talking to one of her friends yesterday, one of her friends' moms, and she was like, we spent $100K on my daughter's horse, and I was like, what?
Yeah, half of that you can get a mini horse.
Man. Anyway, let's jump into it. Boys, let's first get a vibe check. I've been paying a lot of attention to the UCF, on Twitter. I know it's an echo chamber, but also, kind of reading online. The fan base seems kind of split. I think as of yesterday, it wasn't sold out yet, but they're predicting it's going to be packed, going to be sold out. Some fans are still on the fence, kind of having being burned by the last staff, and now they got, Scott Frost, come back for his 2.0 era, and we'll piggyback that off of the Mac Brown 2.0 era. There you go. You like that tie-in? I stole that from Adam. So a lot of them are feeling confident about this game, but a lot of them are also nervous because they just don't know what they have. I think we're also in that same boat. However, I will say I think we do know a little bit more of what we have versus what they think they have or know they have, if that makes sense. Trevor, Troy, whoever wants to take it away, let's just go ahead and dive in wherever. I know we didn't really do much, production type, thoughts or meetings, prior to this episode, that we were just going to keep it mostly organic. But let's go ahead and dive in on the offensive side of the ball. What do we feel like the Tar Heels need to do to secure a win down in Orlando at the bounce house?
Yeah, I'll go into that. And real quick on the vibe check, I'm just like all of us. We don't really know, right? Carrie made a comment. I told you guys that I was going to try to go to the game, and my son's got a soccer game. And I said, do you want Disney World or do you want to go to the soccer game? He said the soccer game. So I'm not going either, but I told her, I was like, if I was more confident, I'd still probably try to find a way to get to that game, but I don't want to spend all that money and go down there and we get slapped, right? So we're still up in the air. We don't know what's going to happen, but the offense is going to be the key, and that's what's got me unsure, to be honest with you, right? I think our defense can hold up, I hope anyway, but I'm not sure what the offense is going to give us. And on the offensive side of the ball, it always starts with the quarterback. So we've talked about it in here. What are we going to see from Gio, right? Is he going to go out there and be the Gio that we saw at South Alabama, or is he going to be the Gio we've saw ups and downs, not really the guy we expected to get these past 3 weeks? So the key to me is going to be can Gio make quicker reads? We've went through it a lot. It seems like he's holding on to the ball too long, and if he's not going to throw it, he's not taking off to run quick enough. I don't think. So are we going to open up the playbook a little more for him? Will we see different things? We've mentioned it here a little bit. I've heard it on other podcasts. Was these first 3 games kind of like a preseason for Belichick to still try to figure out what he had, right? Technically, they did just get there in December. We've got all these new players. Maybe they were still trying to figure it out, right? That's what I had as a fan. Like, there's a lot more left that we can open up on the offensive side of the ball. So I think that'll be huge for us. And it goes back to if we can control the line of scrimmage, run the ball, dominate the run game, and then take it from there. That'll open up a lot. But I do want to see Gio make his reads a little sooner, put the ball in better places where his receivers can succeed and make plays. And if we do that, the defense continues to play like they've played the past 2 weeks, I think we will be happy Saturday.
Yeah, that's good points, Trevor. And, talking about Gio, I really feel like this is his prove it game. I made a post. I know we went really in depth last post game, after Richmond, right? Someone would say, man, they scored 40 some points, right? I think it was what, 41? Was it 41 or 46? I can't remember anyway. 40, we'll go with 41 against Richmond. And that's great, right? But if you kind of like peel the covers back and look under there, it still wasn't a very desirable game from Gio, right? And so, just looking at some things, Gio, I don't think Gio, and he may prove me wrong, but at this point, I believe that he should be already getting into some type of rhythm, right? Charlotte was a bad team, bad defense, not very desirable from a stat line or performance wise. And then, Richmond, 2 touchdowns, rushed for 40 yards, I believe, 119 passing. But we talked about it. A lot of missed reads. There was one play I remember where the ball should have went into another place looking back at it, and him and another player where you could see them talking about it, and it looked like Gio just had the wrong took the wrong read there. So I believe that Gio has to come around this game, and I'm not so confident that he will, because he just had 2 bad defenses. He's going to be facing a lot better defense this time around, but I hope he does. And just to kind of put it in some statistical, I guess you would say, sorry, lost my train of thought there, but like thinking about the North Carolina offense, the first down conversion rate last in the ACC, right? Third down conversion rate last in the ACC. You're talking about being down there last. I mean, you're talking about being past Stanford, right? Virginia, who don't even have a coach anymore, or don't have has a head coach that just left in the middle of the season or got fired. Gio Lopez with a current QBR rating of 20.4. Which is, there's only 10 other quarterbacks in all of Division I that have a worse QBR rating than that. That's just not a winning formula. So he's got to start to put the pieces together. If he doesn't this game, and during the bye week and Clemson comes to town and I see Gio trot out there, I might lose it. But I guess that can be determined at a later podcast after this game. But Troy, do you want to talk about going a little bit further on, Gio Lopez and kind of what you want to see a little bit?
Yeah. Obviously, like Trevor said, the offense will be the focal part of this game now. Defense, there's, things we need to do in order to secure a win and hold up on that side of the ball. I wouldn't necessarily say secure a win, but, there's things on defense, just like the offense, that we need to do to, limit UCF and make it a lot easier on ourselves for both sides of the ball. But particularly on offense, one of the things that I'm going to be watching for is more execution, better execution on the little things. I know that's kind of hard to say. And you may ask me, well, Troy, what do you mean when you say
give an
little,
example?
When you say little things? But one of the topics of discussion from last week against Richmond, is Gio's timing with the receivers. And that's one of the things that I'll be looking for. And Bill touched on it in his presser a couple of days ago of just, of getting that timing down. And it does take time. I don't really foresee, a quarterback or any receiver, in college football or even in the NFL for that matter, getting their timing 100% perfectly. 3 months or 4 months, however long Gio's been on campus. And I know that's like an easy excuse, right? But that's just the reality of it, in my opinion. So watching the little things on offense, where Gio places the ball to his receivers. I know, for instance, there were a couple of plays the last couple games where when he did throw the ball, they were, too high, or I wouldn't necessarily really worry about, too high or too low, and unless you're consistently doing it, because if you're a receiver and it hits your hands, you're taught if it hits your hands, you need to catch it, or at least, come down with it. Things happen from the time you high point the football to the time you make contact with the ground or with another person. But just the timing of it and some of his routes. And another thing that I'm looking for on offense is to get Jordan Shipp involved. I had feel like as an offense, we know what we have in our running back room, right? We've got some solid options there in Damon, who just popped off for over 100 yards and a touchdown against Richmond, had a really solid game against UNC Charlotte, really starting to emerge as a guy that can crack that rotation. And then you got Caleb Hood, who's become a pretty safe option in the running back as well. It'll be interesting to see if they get Benjamin Hall more involved, to kind of have a trio back there.
Yeah, because he didn't have a touch last game.
Exactly. So I really think, us as Carolina fans, we're used to having, guys in that backfield that just don't play much. You look at Omarion Hampton and George Pettaway, the last couple of years, or, Javonte Williams, Michael Carter. Now that was a hell of a running back duo, one that we probably won't see for a long time in Chapel Hill, just in the terms of production. But regardless of that, I do think that your best option as a pass catcher is Jordan Shipp. I think he's a matchup problem for just about anybody that he's lined up across, whether it's getting off the line, creating space. We haven't really been able to see him take the top off of defense. A lot of the routes that we've seen him run have been intermediates. Work through the defense, find cushions, find space with the stop cash, find space within the defense. Sorry, I got a dog that's trying to eat a paper towel over here for some reason.
He needs to take some tips from my dog. People probably don't even notice because he's knocked out.
Yeah, I need to give him some Benadryl or something and knock him out. I didn't know it, dude, but you got to give dogs 6 Benadryl to make them even feel it. And I'm like, dude, I take one and I'm done, for the rest of the night. But I that's couple of the things that I'm watching on offense. Now I know there's been some rumblings, with Austin Blasky and his foot. I wouldn't necessarily say rumblings, but there's a certain timeline that you've got when the guy breaks his foot. And a lot of it was, has been speculation of him coming back, the UCF going into the Clemson game. So, I know I've seen on Twitter that, he was suited up for practice and making his way, onto the practice field. We'll see. If he's maybe on a limited snap count, I think that. But I feel like, the problem.
I would be surprised.
I would too. But I'm just throwing that out there. But I do think with our offensive line, they're starting to get some continuity there. Lindbergh is actually starting to, get his roll down at center, getting the snap back to Gio while it is a little bit slow at times. Just his ability, you've seen him grow over the last 3 games, right? And I think that's a good thing. That's a W in my opinion. But the timing with Gio and getting Jordan Shipp involved, I think are 2 things that I'm watching for the most. We can talk about play calling and what they need to do to get Jordan Shipp involved. But I think when you've got a guy with his skill set, I think you need to get him more involved, whether that's in intermediate routes, line up one-on-one on the outside and just throw a ball up for him to go get. We'll see how they get him involved, but that's definitely something that I'm looking for. He had the 2 touchdown game. Now I'm just looking for him to go over 100. So if he can do that this weekend, cool. But if he can go over 100 and 2 touchdowns, I think Carolina's. If Jordan Shipp has over 100 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns, so I'm not prophesizing here or whatever you want to call it. I'm just making a statement. I think we'd be sitting pretty good with that stat line.
Yeah, talking about the offensive line, I think one of the things that will be interesting to note is watching those tackle positions, right? They've kind of given us a little bit of headache throughout the year, while the offensive line, due to injuries, Christo Kelly, Austin Blasky, and people are kind of sleeping. I think they're finally starting to see of how big of a miss that is not having Christo Kelly out there. But it'll be interesting to see because they've got a very UCF is very confident in their defensive line. It's probably one of their better groups that they said that they believed coming into the season, but they haven't really been tested yet, and that's coming straight from the defensive coordinator's mouth this week in his press conference. So it will be definitely interesting to see because while Gio has had his struggles, the offensive line at times has had some issues protecting him, and for him to get into that rhythm against a defense like UCF, it's going to be probably the second best defense they've seen all year. It's hard to say really, if it's the best with so early in the season, right, in week 4. But it's just going to be interesting to see, right? I mean, those ends on the TCU side of the ball, or not TCU side of the ball, UCF side of the ball are very talented, and they're going to be coming after Gio. So it's going to be really interesting to watch to see if this offensive line can protect Gio. And it's also an interesting note to make too that it's going into Orlando, going into Florida, it's going to be hot. I know UCF has already put out some posts about, staying hydrated, where the water coolers are. And so that could also play an advantage of UCF. While, in the heat of the summer, it's hot here. And, everything that we've read and heard directly from players, that Bill ran them very hard, right, with Moses Cabrera and the conditioning and all that. And so I do feel like they're prepared, somewhat for that, but there's no really preparing you for that Florida heat at 3:30 in the afternoon. And so that would be interesting to see if that's a factor in the players, wearing down throughout the game. Definitely if it's close.
I wanna chime in here too, and just kind of get more. I wouldn't basic statistical with you, I guess you could call it. One of the things that I've noticed, you talk about UCF's defensive line, and one of the things that Adam with Sons of UCF mentioned to us the other night is that they're, through 2 games, they felt like their defense hasn't really been tested. And I get that given the competition that they've played with Jacksonville State and NCA&T. But looking a little bit more into both of those games, one thing to watch out for is while, Jackson State had 157 yards receiving against UCF, and then NCA&T only had 40. But in both of those games, UCF's defense surrendered over 160 yards rushing on the ground. So, one thing to watch out for. That's one of the reasons why I brought up Jordan Shipp and one of the people that I'm watching out for, along with Gio, but little things with Gio. What I'm looking for more in this game is, do we put pressure on their secondary and dial some stuff up for our guys. If we're running, I seem, through 3 games, I've got the impression that Bill's doing whatever we need to do to win the football game. And if that means running the football is effective, then I think that's what we're going to do predominantly through the game. Certainly if UCF is giving up 160 rushing yards to NCA&T on 165 against Jacksonville State, if we come in here and rush for, over 200, that just shows you, number one, the running game is working. But number two, we'll see if we win the football game. But I do think you need to get it's been long discussed leading up to the season leading up to week 1 against TCU that Jordan Shipp was your guy in the receiving room. You felt the most he's the alpha dog of the receiving core. Now we just got to put it. We've got as an offense have got to put it together to showcase his talents. You see what I'm saying? So that's a name that I'm watching for, man. And when we'll see how we press them, press their secondary this Saturday. I just wanted to throw that out there, guys.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't want to feel like I'm harping on Gio a lot, right? To the point where it's like, just bashing him. And that's definitely not what I'm doing. But I'm just a firm believer that he's going to have to play better if he's going to be the starter, going against
it's fair.
UCF. I mean, I think we're last in offense as well in the ACC.
And I'm sure he knows that even too.
We're 16th, right behind Stanford, or right in front of Stanford there. So
Freddie knows too. Along with Gio, Freddie knows this. How stagnant this offense has been through 3 games. You know, I
Yep.
felt like he opened it up a little bit more against Richmond and just some
Yep.
of the route combinations that they were dialing up. But I think everybody within the Kingdom Football Center knows that, you know, the storyline surrounding this football team is, you know, what's your offense going to do?
Yep. Tony Brown over on YouTube says, "What's good, fellas? Good to see you in here, Tony. Thanks for stopping by for our lunchtime hour, I guess you could say." But just to finish off my thought, you know, real quick, is that, you know, while the run game has been kind of like the highlight of the offense, you can't just rely on that throughout a whole season, right? It can be a dominant part of the offense, but it can't be, you know, the focal point throughout a whole game and throughout a whole season, because defenses are going to start to tailor their packages towards that and bring, you know, more people into the box. So yeah, so that's the offensive side of the ball. You guys got any, you know, closing thoughts on the offense before we transition over to the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, I'll just say we talked about it early. We weren't throwing the tight ends last week. I think Jake Johnson by himself had 4 or 5 catches. So curious to see if we continue to add that in, and then if we finally see some passes across the middle, right? Or is that just not going to happen? So,
well, I guess
I'll be looking out for.
What would you say? And I don't mean to cut you off there, Trevor, but just a question back to that. Would you say that touchdown to Georgia Shit was across the middle? I mean, while it was already kind of out of the middle, it was a read across the field. So
I'm talking more so like drag routes.
Yeah.
A guy, a running back out of the backfield, stopping in the middle of the field. But if that play continues to work, I like it. So
hey, Freddie, maybe Freddie's listening to the podcast. I know he's not, but you know, hey, we've been screaming like to get Geo comfortable, we have to get the tight ends involved, easy passes, and we saw that being established against Richmond. Troy, any final thoughts on the offensive side of the ball before we transfer over?
I'm good, brother. I'm still waiting to see this, you know, an explosive offense. But at this point, the guys are out there moving the chains and picking up first downs and scoring points. That's what matters. That's what wins football games. No matter how beautiful or ugly it is, we got to score points and able to win in order to win ball games. So that's what that's really what it boils down to.
Yeah, I mean, you score points and, you know, able to keep, you know, our defensive off the field. That's only going to make our defense more dominant. It's 100%. Only going to make our defense better, right? And in a game like this, you know, going to Orlando, going into the bounce house, it's going to be rowdy. It's going to be packed. It's going to be loud. A lot of these FCS transfers and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of these players, you know, while they have had some of those bigger games on the schedule in their FCS careers, they've had limited time in this type of atmosphere, right, on the road. So that would be an interesting storyline too, to see how, you know, that's handled. While you can't really gauge that, right? That would be interesting to pay attention to. All right, so let's go ahead and transfer to the defense.
Hold on, Chris. I got one last thing. Sorry, buddy. One last thing on the offense side, and I've wondered this for myself, so I'm curious if you know. So I know total penalties. I believe so far we've had 12 total penalties this year. It's down drastically from where we were at this point last year. On the offensive side of the ball, I remember the Aiden Buchanan false start. How many penalties have you saw on the offensive side of the ball? I don't remember many at all other than that. I want to try to find that stat before we end today, but I don't think we've had, like, which is insane. So I'm going to give them some credit there.
Not totally.
Penalized hardly at all, man. So if we can continue that, play a clean game on Saturday, that'll go a long way too.
I know we had one. I mean, I know we've had, you know, a few throughout the season, but, you know, there was one against, you know, I believe TCU. It was, I think, a false start when we got the
Buchanan.
ball. The second time, because the TCU fans behind me started chanting cheaters. So that's why that's burned into my mind. But yeah,
you haven't seen a lot of stupid penalties. I don't mean to cut both y'all off there, but I wanted to chime in on that. You don't see a lot of stupid penalties outside of the false start. And if you get caught on a hold, then you just get beat. You know what I mean? It happens in football, but you don't see a lot of, you know, false starts. Now we have seen, you know, some stupid mishaps, you know, during the play that have costed us, you know, a few times, but I think that stuff you can work out. But yeah, to your point, Trevor, while there have
I don't
been
even remember seeing a hold. Like, I'm curious. I don't know if any of you guys remember. I literally only remember that one false start. So I'm
One
gonna
that
try to
should
find
have
that
been
stat.
a hold was on Marcus Allen against TCU, but it was called pass interference. But
No,
I
I'm
think
talking about on offense.
on offense. Not
Other than
that.
that false start, that's the only thing I can remember on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, if you can find that before we close, that'd be awesome. But I
Yeah.
mean, hey, I mean, credit to them. I mean, that's a big difference between the past few years. It's kind of like sometimes you were scratching your head, like, what are we doing here? Like, why is this not fixed in week 10? Like, what is going on? But hey, kudos to them and the staff for um, fundamentals, right? Do what you can control. You hear
Eight for 80. I believe it was. Yeah, North Carolina. 8 penalties for 80 yards.
through
Yeah,
3
that's
games.
total, right?
That's total. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we had a delay a game against Charlotte, maybe.
Where's
I
that
don't
rate at?
remember a lot.
Troy, is that a ranking one? Like, can you see, like, is that
No, it's just
okay?
on Go Hills UNC football
I thought it's
team.
pretty good.
Team stats.
But cool. Let's go ahead and transfer to the defensive side of the ball. You know, like one of the things, like, you know, that we could say, you know, leading into this segment, you know, is that if the offense can stay on the field, you know, longer, right, and not be so dreadful, you know, on third down conversions and things like that, right, it's only going to make the defensive better. And you know, we've seen the defense come around. I mean, there was a lot of questions, right, after that TCU game, and it did. That's one of those games that it just kind of bubbled over, right? And I think, Trevor, I think you said it was only 27 of those points were on the defense. Is that correct, out of that TCU game? I think, you know, somewhere around that. So
Yeah.
defensive side of the ball, I kicked it to Trevor the first time. Troy, so what do you kind of, you know, you know, not so much have to go by position group, but what are you looking for from this defense to help secure a win in Orlando?
You know, similar to on the offense, you know, just little things, you know, but you know, more piggybacking and carrying over the execution of the fundamentals. I felt like we've done a lot better job of that over the last 2 games. And UCF's going to test us.
Yeah.
They've got probably one of the best running back duos in the Big 12, and I think it's Mixon and Montgomery.
Mhm.
I think it's both of their last names. You know, so I do feel like they're top 10 nationally in average rushing yards per game. I want to say statistically overall through 3 games, this is a top 20 offense in UCF. And I've seen the stats right here.
But you got to kind of put a caveat on that, right? Too, you know, they've only played
who they've played.
Yeah, 2 games. You know, Jacksonville State, you know, was that Conference USA, and
Yeah.
then, you know, FCS program in North Carolina A&T.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a fair point, but just, you know, statistical wise, you know, it is a top 20 national offense with some playmakers sprinkled throughout, you know, their offensive side of the ball. You know, I just touched on their 2 running backs. But in terms of, you know, I don't really know what they've got at receiver. I'm looking at, you know, their stats. Dwayne Thomas Jr. 68 yards against A&T. And then receiving, I think their leading receiver against Jacksonville State was their running back with 71 yards. But from what Adam told us, they have weapons alongside their the offensive side of the ball. You know, obviously, I touched on their running backs, but with me in the defense, you know, similar to the offense, I'm looking, you know, at just better execution and not letting the game, you know, get away from you, I guess, so to speak. You know, one guy obviously that I think, you know, if anybody can carry over or would be interesting to see if they can carry the momentum over from last game against Richmond would be Mekhi Bear. I mean, he had just probably one of the most complete games as a defensive guy that you'll probably ever see, you know, in Carolina, or at least in the next few years, right? So we'll see how he does. I feel like we have a good understanding of where we're at with our linebacking core, and Andrew Simpson, Kamori House, and then Mekhi Bear. You know, the last time this defense and this secondary played against a well-known opponent, they got sliced and diced against TCU. And you know, that's just what it is. You know, Trevor made a good point the other night and caught me. I didn't, you know, I totally forgot that 27 points of that 48 was really on the defense. But you go back and you look at that game and what TCU was able to do with just some of their route combinations. It looked like guys got crossed and just weren't in the right spots. There was some confusion there, specifically on the back end at safety with Will Hardy and Gavin Gibson. So that's, if I had a position group that I'm watching out for, it would be the secondary in this game, because the last time we saw them against, a Power 5 offense, Josh Hoover, threw all over us, and their receivers, I mean, they got a plethora of guys that just put up yards against us. So I think what you got in Thad. I think the biggest one of the bigger question marks in that secondary is what you've got on opposite of Thad and Marcus Allen. And there's been times where, I don't want to crack on Marcus, but let's just call it what it is. There's been times where he's been picked on, and he hasn't answered the call. We know what you can do against FCS talent in Richmond, and then a lower competition in Charlotte. At some point in those games, talent takes over, and you just separate yourself from those two types of teams. But when you're lined up against guys that are nationally known, you got D1 football players over there that can ball. So we'll see. I think if I had, what I'm looking for on the defense is better fundamental execution, carrying that over. I felt like we've done a good job from week 1 to now, tackling in space, sticking to your assignment, better angles, etc. And then just seeing what the secondary does. I think that's going to be key. Now, you can make the argument that what you've got up front will help you secondary, and that's a fair point. But at some point, man, you got to slow that aerial attack down. And I think Carolina, will get tested this week. It's hard not to think that. Sorry if you hear my dog whining over here. But that's all
a fellow, not a fellow, but a UCF fan, Angel. Good luck, fellas, but go Knights. Hey, I think it's gonna be a good game. Hopefully, appreciate you tuning in. Maybe you found us through Sons of UCF, which is pretty cool. Angel listening over there on YouTube. So do us a favor, give this stream today a retweet, and let us know what you thought in your comments as well. We're reading them, keeping them up with them. It's hard to keep up with Instagram because it doesn't put them, directly in front of me. So, some of my thoughts is that, I'm pretty confident, in our linebacker core right now. I mean, I think they're playing at a really good rate. I think they're playing strong right now. They're communicating well. And, one of the comments going back early in the season, looking at in the off season when we were doing our linebacker breakdown, I can't remember if we said it on stream or kind of behind the curtain between us three, was that I'm the one that's maybe mentioned it to you guys, is that, man, like looking at these guys past and how young, like Kamori House is, if the talent is there, if they can put it together, they have the opportunity to be a really good, strong core. For me, what I'm really interested in watching in UCF, it's going to come down to two things on the defensive side of the ball. One is a player, and I know we've already talked about it, is Marcus Allen. I've got a feeling that, Scott Frost, they've been on the bye week. They've been piling through tape, right? And they're going back to TCU probably and seeing that he was picked on. And so I think that's something, and, Orlando, UCF has a lot of players, from Florida, right? And anybody that knows, and even Sons of Adam from Sons of UCF touched on this, is that, Florida produces speed. And so they have a lot of speed as well. And while they're a little unsure in the wide receiver room, just because there are a lot of transfers, a lot of young guys, they've got talent. They've got speed. And so I expect them to test that speed against our defense. And so I'm going to be paying close attention, to Marcus Allen, because we know what we have in Thad, right? If Thad ends up getting burned on a route, it's going to happen at some point, right? Like even elite corners today in the NFL or across college get burned, but it's going to happen at some point. But we know what we have in Thad, and he's most of the time, 95% of the time, I guess you could say, he's going to hold down his side of the field. It's the other side of the field that I'm concerned with. And then for me, it comes in the trenches, right? Our defensive line has surprised me a little bit over the past, 2 games. While it was against Charlotte, and Richmond, it seems like they're playing at a better rate. I'm really looking at this defensive line, like, one of you guys mentioned, hey, this is another, it's a Big 12 team. This is our opportunity to go up against I guess you would say a P4 school and prove other people wrong, that we are ready for, bigger matchups, better talent. Right. And so I really want to see this defensive line, stuff to run, because Scott Frost is probably going to try to run the ball as well. And so Leroy Jackson, DeAndre Robinson, I'm looking for them to step up. Right. And I think if you go back against Richmond, looking at Richmond, in the second half, while Richmond didn't have a lot of or hardly any success on the offense, in the second half, if you go back and look at the film, there were some runs starting to leak through, which, from my point of view anyway, they were starting to leak through. And I started to get like, I don't know, why are we, what's going on here? Is there a communication issue, players wearing down? I don't know. Sometimes it just happens. So I'm really looking forward. I'm seeing this defensive line just really step up and put the pieces together, and help Carolina secure a win here. Trevor, what are some of the things you're looking at as UNC, this defense takes on this fast UCF offense?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that. So when we had Adam on, what was his thing? Their motto: UCF, UC fast,
Yep.
right? And if you look, I know their opponents are who they are, but we got to go with what we've saw, right? So right now, the thing with their offense that they do is they thrive on chunk plays, explosive plays. I think they've had 18 plays of 20 or more yards through 2 games. Sorry. They're averaging 14.4 yards per completion, which is 7th nationally right now. So for me, man, we've got to build on our performance, but it's going to come down to, you mentioned it, Troy, tackling in space, avoid the blown coverages, and force long drives. You got to win early on 1st and 2nd down and force that quarterback into 3rd and long and make him beat us. They're going with the guy that didn't win the job coming out of camp. I'm pretty sure it hasn't been said yet, but Cam Fancher was the starting quarterback, and FAU transfer, won the job coming into the season. He was off to a rough start against Jacksonville State, wasn't moving the ball. He got hurt, and I think he's healthy now from all the reports I've read. But Taven Jackson has stepped in. That offense has looked a lot better since then. They're just to even build on that. But what they dominate mainly is the rushing game. I think Troy mentioned they're top 10 nationally with 232 yards per game. Just last week against North Carolina A&T, they averaged 11 yards per carry and had 356 rushing yards. So it's going to be take away what they do best, which is what Belichick typically does, a Belichick defense. So we're going to have to take away the run game and force that quarterback to beat us. And I think it starts with continuing to win on 1st and 2nd down. And then when we get them to 3rd and long and we know they're going to pass, I'm curious to see, can Melcart build off the performance he had last week and continue to be the guy that we did a segment in Delaware that, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Chris, you're very good. I know we've got each player broke down on their segment. You can go on YouTube and just watch Melcart's segment, but we saw these flashes coming into the season. So can he build on that and look like the guy we thought he would be? So that'll be a key for me, but mainly it's, man, just continue to do what you've done these past 2 games on defense. The D-line has done a really good job stuffing those holes and making the run game not kill us. So force them in 3rd and long where they got to pass, and I think we'll be in good position if we can do that. But Melcart, if he goes out here and has another 2-sack performance, if we get Price Yates back healthy at some point, boys, this D line continues to play like they're playing, look out. We thought this D line was going to be a weakness, but I know we've only played Richmond and Charlotte, but they've held their own better than I thought they would.
Yeah, Troy, any thoughts on that?
I felt like over the last 2 games, given the competition, looking at from week 1 to now, I feel like, just the continuity with our defense is getting there. You know what I mean? It's stronger than what it was. I feel like going in into week 1, and certainly what it showed in week 1. Guys are trusting themselves and, being, I guess you could say, being more disciplined in their assignments. And that's a big thing. I definitely definitely keep an eye on the defensive line and just what they're able to do. I think 4 out of 5 UCF starters on UCF's O-line are all new players. So it'll be be anxious to see just how much pressure we can get on whichever quarterback they do decide to roll out there. Another thing maybe to watch out for is if they do roll out both at some point in time. I guess we can throw that out there and make that known for the viewers. But overall, man, just with this defense is you've put 2 good performances together against lesser opponents. Now it's time to really right the ship, and there's one or two things is going to get said about this defense. It's okay, well, yeah, they can do it against lesser competition, but they can't do it against against a P4 opponent. There's some question marks there, or they'll come out and play with their hair on fire and be disciplined and better execution on the fundamentals. So we're gonna find out, because I think UCF, while they have played just like us, 2 lesser opponents the last 2 weeks, they've got playmakers. It's just all about how they'll use them and how we react to them. So good point, though, Trevor, about Belichick, taking your weakness or taking your strong suit and making it a weakness throughout the course of the game. I'm with you. I think their running back room statistically with who they've got back there is definitely something to watch for in this game. And we'll see. Another thing, I was thinking about this. We were talking about Marcus Allen and Thad. Be interesting to see if Thad shadows one of their hot receivers. We see that a lot in modern football. You know what I mean? You got a lockdown corner. How many times is Jalen Ramsey? Guys like that. You follow your number one receiver, or if you got somebody going off and you need to cool them down, you plug Thad over there and have him follow. So, just looking for a good performance from defense.
Trevor, who do you feel in the wide receiver room for UCF as somebody that Carolina cornerbacks and secondary needs to pay attention to?
I mean, it's early, but right now the guy's been Dwayne Thomas, a Charlotte transfer. He's had.
I think he just froze. Yep, Dwayne Thomas, 7 catches, 117 yards, and 16.7, average. So far. So I think Trevor's back with us now.
Yeah, you're back now, Trev.
I don't know what happened, boys. Spectrum out here working on lunch, I guess. They don't take lunch off. But yeah, Dwayne. And then they've also got DJ Black, a D2 transfer that was good at the D2 level. And those D2 guys, I think Idaho's D2, right? They killed us, that TCU receiver. So Dylan Wade, too, a former Maryland tight end. He's got some potential. So he's a bigger guy. So I'd be curious to see if our linebackers can lock him down.
Trevor, Big K showing you some love over there on YouTube.
No way, froze, right? I know, Big K. I was saying something good, man. They trying to hold me back.
Trying to hold you down. But yeah, so I think it's an intriguing matchup. As we transition to kind of like our final thoughts here, what's your thoughts? In theory, most of the time, people kind of harp. It seems like a lot on, UCF might have the advantage here. Coming, been on a bye, right? Carolina, just got done playing Richmond. I'll give my thoughts, then I'll kind of see what you guys think. For a game like this and the way this Carolina team started out against TCU, right? And then Charlotte, while we won the game, it was kind of not desirable, right? And then Richmond, more of a dominant performance, I guess you could say, and seeing the defense starting to put it together. Still, Gio seems to be progressing a little bit. I don't know how much, you could say. That's a loaded question, but I kind of like Carolina, not having a bye leading to this game. I like the momentum that they've had carrying over into this game. Two wins under their belts, now, after being, slapped by TCU. So what's your guys' thoughts on that?
I mean, it's a good point, man. I think you've mentioned it in our last episode. The TCU game happened at a good time. If it was going to happen, I'd rather it go ahead. Let's get it over with week 1.
Yeah.
So we can see what we need to work on, see who the guys were that got exposed, what went wrong, and fix it, which was pretty much everything, right?
Yeah.
So I agree. I think you've got momentum right now. Luckily, we've been able to stay healthy. So the guys are ready to play. And I think the bye week sets up perfect coming next week before you play Clemson. So I do like the way the schedule's lined up for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with the bye week, it depends on where the bye week is within the schedule, right? I think in our case, you get after you got thumped week 1 and everything that transpired there throughout the course of the game, you get your 2 solid wins, and you got thumped week 1, so then what didn't work. So you go up against two lesser opponents, and you get some things corrected, and then in that you find what does kind of work. You know what I mean? And guys get more comfortable, with live reps. And going into this game, we got a bye week right after that. Then you play Clemson, so it gives you a chance. We've said it on here before in different segments and different episodes that we'll really see what this team is about. With the UCF game, I think a lot of the fan base and other outlets that cover Carolina feel the same way. So, I think, with this one, it's and as it pertains to the bye week, we'll figure out, where we're at and then regroup, and get ready for Clemson. But it starts this week. So I think the guys are just taking that mentality of going 1-0 and doing what they got to do to get better.
Yeah, I think, last thing I'll say on this, and then, we'll transition if any of you guys have any bold takes, is that, why I like not having a bye here is that, not so much is it about the bye. It's that UCF played Jacksonville State, then played North Carolina A&T. They haven't faced anybody like a TCU yet, right? Like we have. All of our transfers from an FCS program have somewhat now experienced that speed, that I guess you would say higher ball IQ level, right? So I really feel like that plays at an advantage, for us. Does that translate when you're playing away and going to the bounce house and it's 100 degrees and that place is going to be rocking? So that's the kind of the point that I like, that, we have faced somebody like TCU, and with so many transfers, they've seen that high football IQ at a high level already. And so hopefully that does, bode our way. Any of you guys, I don't really have a bold take. I'm kind of just like at that moment where it's like, my bold take is just like, this is Gio's game. For me, I'm not a coach, right? I'm not making the decisions. I mean, we all know that, but if he doesn't show it this week, in my opinion, something's got to change, because we're about to start getting into ACC play. Still, all the cards are on the table for us as it relates to ACC play, bowl eligible, the type of bowl we go to. So that's what I'm going to be looking at, right? That's what I'm going to be focused on, and other things like I mentioned earlier. But any of you guys got any bold takes that you kind of want to throw out there to our listeners today?
Yeah, I do. That's a really. Did I lose you guys again?
No, I was just saying.
Okay.
I do have a bold take. Actually,
yeah, I do.
Don't scare Trevor like that.
It's exciting. It's exciting to do it. So you got to throw it out there. But I like the point you made. So hopefully we can go out there and do to them what TCU did to us, right? That we're their first big test. So maybe we can give them a little bit to go look at on film Monday. But
Trevor, hold on. Let's ask Angel. Let's. He's a UCF fan. He's down there. He said our camp is fired up. Angel, drop right now. How are you? Drop us a thought in the YouTube comments. How are you feeling personally about this game? 50-50, strongly take you to UCF. Let us know your thoughts, but keep going.
Of course they're fired up. Carolina's coming to town.
That's right.
Yeah, Belichick, right? The Belichick effect. So I'll say my bold take is a unit we haven't talked about at all today. I think the special teams could be, if we go down there and play well and we have a shot to win, I think special teams could be a huge factor for us. I think we've got a really good kicker. He hasn't had to do it, but I was watching him at halftime, boys. making 60-yard plus kicks.
We had a 49er,
Automatic.
right? 49
Yeah,
or
that
48 or
one.
46, something like that
But
at Charlotte.
49er against the
But-
49ers.
Yeah, special
Zing.
special teams on the road is always huge. So if we can win that and make some plays on special teams, and my bold take is going to be, I think we block a punt this week. We've got
Special
close a few
teams,
times.
Special players.
We've got close a few times, so I'm going to say we block a punt in this game and shift some momentum, and we'll see what happens if the offense can get it together.
Y'all want my bold take?
Well, that is a bold take because saying we block a punt because I think they maybe Angel will let us know, but I think they either blocked a field goal or a punt. I think it was a field goal or something like that in their last game, but that's kind of like a storyline narrative there.
Yeah, I think Bill and the guys, because I don't know how many of our starters are playing on special teams, but when I've looked, even on field goal block, Thad's out there, DeAndre Robinson. So I think our guys on special teams will make a play.
Hey, just one quick note. I'm really excited to have so many UCF fans here today. No, I mean I really mean that, right? So Ken Hudson, the UCF, he says neither one of us know what we got, but UCF is fast. Go Knights, charge on. Ken, but give us your personal opinion. How do you see this fall, and how are you feeling about it? We're still waiting on Angel to drop.
He said he was real confident, but it's hard to know because they haven't been tested.
Oh, yep. You're right. My bad. Oh,
Yes,
sorry.
sir.
I think one of you guys put that out there.
Yeah.
All right, Troy. You said you got a bold take.
Yeah,
We'll get out of here.
Yeah, my bold take would be just win the game.
Just a bold take, brother.
I know it's not, but that's my take. Just win the football game. Do whatever
My
you
bad,
got to do. Do whatever you got. No, I ain't mean it that way.
I
Just
won't
do
throw
whatever-
no shade, my guy.
I know. Just do whatever you got to do to win the football game. I don't care if it's dirty, ugly, pretty, sexy. It don't matter. A W is a W at the end of the day. Now, if you go out there and just play like you played against TCU, shoot yourself in the foot, then we'll get the impression that we're back to square one. But whatever you got to do, just win the football game. Win.
Ken put a sorry, I gotta stop doing a there because I think I just scared both of y'all. But Ken just put a score prediction. I think Trevor's on it. Go ahead and put it in there, Trevor.
27-21. I'm refraining from doing.
Yeah, we're 2-0 without doing a prediction, so we're not going to do it, Ken. But I like how you mentioned.
I gave a prediction for TCU and had us losing. Okay, so
yeah, but I don't know. We haven't did it. And we've won. I'm not adding it. You could do it on your other show, Chris. Just play it. No, but I like Ken's other point too, boys. We didn't mention this, but depends on their O-line play. They've got four of their 5 starting offensive linemen are brand new this year.
One's a monster. I think you said 6'10", hasn't given up a sack yet.
330. Yeah, 6'10", 330. His name is Paul Rubelt. So he's been playing left tackle for him. So yeah, but I think that's huge. Can their O-line hold up, and can our D-line build on their performance that they've had?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm looking for a Melcart sack, and I want to see Leroy Jackson just keep getting better and shining out. So
yeah. Xavier too. Let's not forget him. What is he? The highest rated true freshman?
Yep.
In
walk
the
on, right?
Country. Yeah, walk on out of your boy. Troy out of Roseville. So
yeah, Rainier be breeding them dogs. I'm telling you.
Look, we said we were gonna keep this episode to
30 minutes.
Yeah, Ken also said our defense is tough but untested. Yeah, true. Last thing, right? Let's give just a little, some narrative around this, right? Looking at we did a little bit of production. We each did our individual work, but we usually join together and kind of, walk through things before meeting up on a podcast. But first ever meeting between UNC and UCF. So that's interesting. I just had it in here. Where did it go?
They were supposed to play.
Yes, past attempts. Yep.
Yeah, they were supposed to play. There were 2 times they were supposed to play. One of them was when either we were supposed to go there, or they were supposed to come to Chapel Hill, but Hurricane Florence pushed it back, and then the other one was during COVID and all that mess. So this is our 3rd attempt at playing them. Obviously, we know that Chip Lindsey was their offensive coordinator before he came to Carolina to coach Drake for one season, and then left for Michigan. So there's some history between the two programs. So we'll see how Saturday goes.
Yeah. Hey, some weather almost tried to interfere with this one, but it looks like it's pushing off further from the coast. That's a good thing. I mean, for humanity down there as well, but also for the football game, right? It's not always about football, even though it's like 90% of the time. But UCF is now in the Big 12. UNC has never beaten a Big 12 opponent while they're in the Big 12. So this is their chance to break some Carolina history and maybe some juju, I guess you could say. Troy, Trevor, y'all take the last two, or maybe I think there's only one more. But
Hey,
guys.
I like that. Maybe some juju. I don't know if you know.
Hey,
yeah. Yeah.
Let's get
have
this
a little
man rolling
juju.
right here. Let's get the true freshman balling out. He's got it. He's got it in him. I like what I'm seeing.
Can he build off his performance last week? Right.
Yes, sir. I got the sound on it, and I'm just going to let it play. That's Damon June.
He got caught that first time. He was making sure he didn't get caught right there. And it's my fault. I want to say, boys, I had money on UNC to score a touchdown first drive. So it's my fault he got caught. So that's on me. I'm not putting money on it this week. So we can go back to scoring on the first drive.
I'm reluctant to say this, and I know us guys, like, we can always just keep going on and on and on and just chatting it up, right? But there's this Twitter page that's pretty well known. They're not like a UNC fan. They just cover sports. For some reason, they have me personally blocked. I have no idea why. I don't even think I've ever interacted with them. I was able to still make a comment to them, and I was like, what's the deal? But they never responded. But they made this crazy, I don't know, it kind of, irked me a little bit, but they were like, somebody said something about Juju making a name for himself or something like that. And then he retweeted it or commented it, or they did, or whatever, who they are. This page that blocks me personally was like, being tracked down by FCS opponents. Like, dude, he's a true freshman and he's not built like a speed rushing back. Like, what are you talking about? Like, just because they're in FCS doesn't mean they don't have fast players at the cornerback and safety level, which that's who tracked him down.
If he would have listened to our podcast, he would know. Remember our Richmond guest? So they got a couple guys in that safety room that run 4.4s and 4.3s. So
yeah, he needs to get his ball IQ up. Anyway, y'all know how I can get when some people gets under my skin. But Troy, Trevor, our last thing. When do y'all take the last point about the Belichick and Scott Frost narrative?
You got it, Trev.
Yeah. So Belichick, Frost. When Belichick was with the Jets, they actually drafted. Belichick was DC. They drafted Scott Frost in the second round. So they played. Scott Frost played 2 seasons under Belichick. So that's a cool storyline. So we'll see if there's a little something there that Frost knows about the Belichick defense more so than what you can see by watching film. But also, I like what we mentioned about Scott Frost 2.0, similar to what we did with Mac 2.0. So hopefully we can put a stop to his. Mac 2.0 won the first game when we came back too. That third game didn't go our way though. So maybe we can see that. I'll let you read this comment.
I usually read comments, and I was like, before I put them up, and I didn't. I was like, and I saw Big Bill, and I did not know where this was going to go. So I was like, well, I'm glad it was a safe one. But Angel from UCF says, tell the Big Bill to get ready to learn how to speak bounce house, buddy. Gosh, I really wish I could go to this game because I love stadium atmospheres. And, how, Keenan's a little less desirable, but we won't talk about that. I talked about my experience at Virginia Tech, just wild. I would love to be there for this game and just it actually bounced because of the structure. Anyway, I digress. Hey, that's the first one you've heard in a long time. Any last thing? My last thing is I just want to throw this up here in some way and somehow of hopes for this guy. Please.
Bring some positive juju to Gio.
Gio Lopez, brother.
It's Gio time.
It's Gio go time.
That one is that one's been on a yellow light, man, a red light. Yeah, we haven't had green yet. Freddie's gonna give him that green light this weekend.
I promise I'm not trying to jab or throw some shade, Trevor, but I haven't seen the Gio Lopez jersey in a while. Maybe that's the problem. You need to bring
I wore
it out.
to Charlotte. What you mean?
Okay. Well, that was like 2 weeks ago. Oh wow.
I can't wear the same jersey every week. I brought out Culliver last week, so does Culliver have a big performance this week?
Hey, all right. But anyway, Gio Lopez, even though you're not listening to this podcast, brother, we believe in you. It's your time to shine. It's your time to prove it. Please. But anyway, all right. You guys want to get out of here?
Let's go. I got to get
I'm
back
good,
to work.
cuz.
Gotta get back to work. All right. Well, hey, thanks everybody for tuning in today. It was good to have some UCF fans in here. Cordial, nice, kind. I appreciate that. It's awesome. That's not all the experiences you have in the triangle, at least. So definitely good to have them into the stream. Hey, look, lunchtime. Appreciate you guys, tapping in with us. 137. I think we got up to around 150. That's not our normal nighttime numbers, but look, we get it. It's our first one we've ever done at lunchtime. So we appreciate you guys for tuning in. Be sure whatever platform you're listening on, you follow, subscribe, turn the notification bells on. Also, you can find this episode if you want to listen to it back or haven't been able to get to it yet, or just driving down your car and you want to stay safe. You can listen to the Spotify version a little bit later today on audio or video format. Just don't watch the video format in your car while you're driving. We don't support that. So anyways, appreciate you guys tuning in. Tar Heels, let's do it big. Ken Hudson says, great job, guys. Appreciate you, Ken, for tapping in. I hope you guys have an awesome time in the bounce house, but not so awesome that it leads to a UCF win. But anyway, go Tar Heels. And until next time, as always, go Heels.
Go Heels.
Go Hills.
Hey Tar Pit crew, thanks for hanging with us today. Quick shout out. Today's episode is powered by Untapped Sports Network. Big thanks to them for the support. If you like this episode, do us a favor. Like it, drop a comment, and share it with a friend. That kind of support goes a long way in keeping the podcast rolling. Make sure you're subscribed and following the Tar Pit podcast on whatever platform you're listening on right now. And don't forget to follow us on social. We're on X, formerly Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Just search the Tar Pit podcast and you'll find us. Until next time, go Heels.